What's up, fellas? 2 videos in one weekend. I might be getting back into YouTube, huh? Look at her. People say, why in the heck do you clean it all up to go get it muddy? It just makes it last longer. They start to rust if you don't keep the mud off of it. She is straight. Something I want to tell you, there's a couple things I want to talk about. These, I have got to, see that? See how that cap's ripped off of there? That happened the last time I went out. These have got to go. I'm going to take them and have them bust just this one side down and put some aluminum ones or just steel ones in here. I got to get rid of them. I hadn't thought about it before, but I've had that happen to me in the woods. I had a kid step on my valve stem on a truck I had and break it off in the woods. That was my boy. I bet he's all cleaned up. I ordered the stuff to put the radio in. We get that in. We're gonna put the cameras in and backup camera. This thing will be sweet then. And I got I bought a Jeep for 300 bucks. I ain't showed it to y'all yet. I might show it to you today, but this was laying in the back of it. So I'm gonna buy a box, clean it up, see if it still works. It's got something in it, but it may not even work. I ain't even tested it. But what I want to talk to y'all about, look at that. She's all cleaned up. Sprayed her down with, I always spray it down with WD-40. It helps keep the wiring and all good. What I want to talk about is wiring. I made some videos on wiring before, and people say these are junk. They're not the best. They're the PVC type crimps, but if it's going to be something permanent forever type of stuff, you don't want to use these. But there ain't nothing permanent on this thing, and I don't, drive it every day, and so these suffice. What it boils down to is how much money you want to spend every time you decide to change fans or whatever. Now, hooking up a relay, I left this out to show y'all. I use heat shrink and those spade ends that are bare, and I put heat shrink over it and crimp them, and that works pretty good for relays. I got this fan now running off the computer. It's coming on at 180, not 160. I said that yesterday, but I checked it this morning. When my gauge is on 190 on the dash, the computer is reading like 180. So need to put a manual gauge on here and see what it's really running. But what I did was I have the computer turning on this fan. The computer is turning on this relay. This relay has its own source of power. That way we're not drawing too much off the factory setup. And it's turning on this fan too at 180, and also when the air kicks on, the air conditioner. She cleans up nice, don't she? Some purple power and pressure washer, and I can't wait till somebody starts making wiring harnesses for these things. I want to change this wiring harness out. You know how our clips get broke? I gotta zip tie that down before we go. I'm just going over it with a fine-tooth comb where I don't have any troubles when we go out there. I just got off the phone with David. He's hooking up an Albright contactor. If anybody needs any advice on doing that, I can show y'all how to do that too, to do away with your, I made a video on it before. If you have that solenoid type, those round solenoids on your winch, they don't work that good. You can get an Albright, a contactor. It's 250 amps, and you can do away with that. And he's doing it right now. I had my old Warren hooked up that way, but this has an Albright in it from the factory. But the wiring stuff, it's what I do for a living. I have a pretty good collection. These are good in a pinch, and if it's something that's not permanent, they're cheap. They do work pretty good, and I use them a lot because nothing's permanent on my Jeep. So if you're going to do something forever type of thing, say a sensor, or repair your connection to your oil pump, your oil pressure sensor, which I've had to do, you want to use these type. These type you crimp these, then you heat shrink it, and it's got solder in the middle, and it solders the wire together. These are forever connections. And then you can also take, after you do this, These are 3M heat shrink tube kit. You can run a piece of this over it and cut it to length, and then heat shrink that over this, and then you got a jam up watertight connection that will last forever. You have to be careful with sensors, doing wiring up sensors. The best way to do, say if you're gonna, say when we change that, if we change that 2-bar map out to a 3-bar, the way you want to do that is you take your wire, say your wire, you strip it back and you tie them together till they're the same width as the wire inside of it. You just twist it together and you slip heat shrink over it down here, and then you want to solder this, just enough solder to cover the 2 wires and connect them together, not no big ball of ugliness, just enough to cover that wire, and then you put your heat shrink over it and heat shrink it down and you're good to go. For a sensor, you can use these, but this method's better because you're only dealing with a 5-volt feed from the computer. So the better the connection, especially back to the ECM, is the better the connection you got, the better it's going to work, because you're dealing with 5 volts input and like 0.38 volts, 1 volt, 2 volt going out. So if you have a bad connection on a sensor going out, or a high resistance connection, it's going to change the value going into the computer. So these work good for that. You can get these in the parts store. They're kind of expensive. For like 5 of them, it's like $10, but they work really good. Or you can do it a cheaper route, just using the heat shrink and solder, and to me it's better. If I have stuff at work that it's got to last forever, I'll do this. Now, I made a video years ago about how to find broken wires, and I used these on it only because it was a temporary repair. I was getting a whole nother harness for it. These work in a pinch, or for stuff that doesn't really matter, you know, for a fan or something where you're dealing with 12 volts in and you're just powering it up. These will work okay. But the best way, if you know how to solder, there's plenty of videos on it, is just tie the wire together, solder them, and put heat shrink over it. And you can double it too. You could put this size on it and then run another piece above over that and heat shrink it up twice, one longer than the other on the outside, and that works good. These are the spade connectors that I use to make relay connections. They work really good. You can buy them bare on Amazon or wherever, and you just crimp them and heat shrink them. You always want a tight connection here too. You can even solder these. I've done that. You can crimp it and then heat it up and put a little ball of solder, just touch the solder on the end, and it'll suck it in there and work pretty good. These work good. These are really good. They're just expensive, and these are like my quick fix stuff. Now this is all stuff I use for AC stuff for the house. I just got them in here. I don't use them very often. Battery connections, cable connections. There's a swedge tool that you swedge these down with. That works good, and you can solder these in too, but I kind of like to swedge it and just leave it alone and not solder it, because these want to get hot sometimes and it may melt the solder and make it come out. And I got these things for different jobs I do. This is my little collection of stuff. They even have these with the solder ends on them, which these are, I don't like using anything that'll come off. I like using rings. And I'll show you something to never ever use. I don't know if I even got any in here. You see how that's all dusty? It came in a kit that I got. Don't ever use these to do anything. It's a wire splice. See, you slip that over the wire and you push your wire you want to tap into there. You squish that down. What happens is that piece right there cuts the damn wire in half almost. And I tell all my guys at work when I'm training, don't use these ever. And if you find these in an electrical system, and you're having issues with your electrical system, take all these out, do away with them, and that's probably where your problem's at. These things suck. I don't even know why I use them. These are little wire clamps. But look at these old zip ties. You can tell I've had these a minute. That's the old school babies. Anyway, and you want to use fuses on everything. I don't as much as I should, but y'all don't do what I do. And keep a fire extinguisher in your Jeep. If you don't have a fire extinguisher in your Jeep, get one. A little insulated spade connector inside that. Here's another one for jumping. But I got Betty ready to go. I took all this stuff out of there. That other Jeep I bought, it's over at my buddy's house. I robbed the thing out of this, which now I'm putting that double dent in there. I got to get another one anyway. This did not work that well because I tried to insulate it from the back, but the air conditioner kept filling these up with water, making them not work right. But she ready to go. Y'all ever get tired of working on your Jeep? I don't. I like playing with it. This winch has been so good. That sucker is fast and strong, especially if you run 2 batteries in the back. Luckily I have access to some old ones at work, and I can get, here's my old setup right here. I just bought 2 new ones and put in the back of mine. I'm gonna give these to David, put in his Jeep. We just put 2 in Kevin's. But if you put 2 of these in the back, that's a 6-volt sealed battery, almost like an Optima, but they're lead acid, but they're sealed. You can mount them any way you want to. You put 2 of these in back, hook them in series, run a negative to the chassis, a good fat chassis ground, and run you a power wire, like a number 4 or whatever you can find, cable up to the front. It'll make your winch work way better. I can put my rope on there, put my jack in there, and we'll be good to go. I moved the, I've been working on this thing a lot lately. I moved our overdrive switch was up here. I used to have my winch switches there, but I got a remote control now, so I don't need it. But I moved my torque converter here. I don't tell nobody, but if you're running this kind of shifter and like a theft thing, you just turn that switch on, the overdrive, and if you try to put it in gear with it, like if you crank it up right now, put it in gear, just shut the engine off. You never figure it out, especially if you hid that sucker somewhere. I made a video on that too, how to keep a XJ from getting stolen. Years ago, a guy contacted me, and he was living in the Bronx, and all the Jeeps were getting stolen. And all you have to do is grab your handle and pull it real hard, and the whole handle will come off. And there's a plastic piece, like a stem sticking up in there. You can pull that thing out, put it in your pocket, pop your thing back on there, and it will not go in gear for nothing. But that's for us to know. I made him a video on it, and he used it. But she's about ready to go. I'm about to go get my trailer and load her up. Next time y'all see it, it'll be in the woods getting nasty. But like I said before too, these relays, you can get them out of the junkyard. I don't know where this one come from, but there's a schematic on the side of them, and you can build any little circuit with them for your lights. All my lights and stuff are hooked up that way. Anyway, I guess I'll see y'all on the trail ride. They got a road for me. They say I can't go down. I can't wait. Me and Kevin's gonna go. Yeah, I gotta mount this too. Somewhere to put stuff down in there. But y'all take it easy, guys. I just want to show you Betty all clean before we get her dirty again, because I've been cleaning on her for 2 days. I tried to cut my finger off with the pressure washer. Alright, see y'all probably sometime next week. I'll get that video edited and uploaded on the trail ride, and y'all take it easy. Later.